Hi, welcome to Chad's Silversmithing. First, thanks for coming to my channel. I appreciate you coming by. It helps out the channel a great deal if you'd hit the like button or leave a comment before you leave, so I'd appreciate it if you do that. So lately I've been visiting some different art periods. I've done some Art Deco stuff, a little Art Nouveau things. I have some plans for some Bauhaus, and today I'm going to do something that is reminiscent of the Brutalist movement, which is kind of a post-World War II restructuring, kind of mostly architecture, but bled over into other fashion and things like that. So tends to be blocky and angular, and so I'm going to do a ring that's kind of based off of that sort of architectural style. I think it'll be fun. It's going to be a challenge. I'm going to create an angular prong setting and surround it by a bunch of pillars of beat up square wire, all pointing in the same direction. I think it'll look kind of like, I'm basing it off of a drawing I've seen online of a design type for this sort of thing, and it reminds me of those basaltic pillars that form in some places that are octagonal, not square like it's going to be on this, but octagonal, and they break off at different heights. So it's got multiple tiers of these different pillars all kind of stuck together, and I think that's what it's going to look like. So we'll see if I can make it look that way, but that's, in my mind, that's what it's going to look like, so we'll see. Before we get started, I'd like to thank my YouTube subscribers. We're about to pass 6,800, or we just passed 6,800. I can't remember. I think we just passed 6,800. Getting close to 7,000. Thanks, you guys. I appreciate all of your support, both the nice things you say and the financial contributions. I'd also like to give a thanks to my patrons over on Patreon who are buying my premium content. There's different tiers of membership over there, and with different membership benefits. It's a nice group of people I've developed over there, and I'm really enjoying the sharing of ideas and strategies for things. I think I'm learning quite a bit from them. I hope they're learning some from me too as well. But definitely lots of great jewelry talk going on over there. So thank you guys. I appreciate that. That pleases me to no end that you're utilizing each other's information and knowledge. That's wonderful. Thank you so much. You've created a nice community over there. And I appreciate all of your support. Let's get started on this brutalist looking ring. So let's take a look at what I drew up in my design idea book here. These are available on my merch store, incidentally. I almost filled this one up. I find that they're useful to help me keep things sort of symmetrical, because I can't draw a straight line for my life. And it's got this nice little grid pattern on it, so that helps me out a lot. And to keep things in proportion. Sometimes I struggle with that too. Alright, so like I said, I've seen a similar one online, but what I'll need to do is, and I found a garish sort of orange CZ. Sometimes I like garish stones. But this is the kind of stone, if you want to be seen in a room, wear that one. But I think it's probably 7 or 8 millimeters. It's a pretty decent size. I think it's about 8 millimeters. So what I'm going to try and do here is I'm going to make a prong setting like this that's just real basic and angular. And then we're going to build up this wall of pieces of square wire that are pointing all in the same direction and soldered together, and then build a band around it on the outside here. And then I'll probably, saw it or trim it off in some way to make it nice and round from the side for a nice fit on your finger. I honestly don't know if I'll be able to do this or not, but it'll be an interesting challenge. I think I'll probably be using my magnesia block to push things into, because it's a soft surface and I can push things vertical. The first thing, though, I think we need to do is to build the setting here. One of the things that intimidated me when I was a relative beginner was dealing with faceted stones, and especially making prong settings. And it is, of course, a little bit more of an advanced task. So This may not be the best ring for a beginner, probably something a little more advanced. But I think what I'm going to do is I took some 14 gauge square wire that I had. I didn't have any smaller stuff, so I pulled it through my draw plate a couple of times to make it a little bit smaller, and I ended up with, this is probably somewhere near 16 gauge, maybe a little bit bigger than 16 gauge, somewhere between 14 and 16, to make it just a little bit thinner. And oh, if you've never seen a draw plate, this is a draw plate. It's got graduated holes. They get gradually smaller as you go. The interesting thing about mine is it's not, the numbers on here are not identified with a particular gauge. I don't know why that is, but it would make more sense to do that. So I have to figure out which one is 14 gauge before I start pulling it through. Here's my plan for this setting. So I think what I'm going to do first in order to do this, I'm going to make an X out of some of this square wire. It doesn't have to be huge, but the X is going to end up being the prongs that go upright. Let's do the circles first. So I need to make 2 circles that are both just slightly smaller than the outside diameter of this stone. One of the things about square wire is that it always wants to twist a little bit on you. And so you want to, when you're making a jump ring out of square wire, you want to try and control that twist so it keeps the flat side towards where you want it to be. And I find that going back and forth on which way it's on top of the whatever you're shaping it around, switching around the direction you have it on there, seems to help a little bit. Alright, let's see how close we are. That's pretty close. Let's cut off a couple of those and see how they look. So it looks to me like these are just slightly too big, and that's fine. What we'll do is just snip a little piece out of each of them. I recognize it's not perfectly circular right now, but mostly I'm trying to check for basic size. That's pretty good. Still slightly on the big. Maybe once I open this up and file it, it'll be a little bit smaller, and then it'll be just about right. Alright, if you haven't seen my videos before, I use a spray-on flux called My-T-Flux and hard silver sheet solder. Everybody asks me about these shears. They're just Fisker's craft shears. They're nothing too fancy. You'll see me do a lot of pick soldering in my videos. That's where I use a soldering pick to pick up a little bit of solder on the end of the pick and then place it real precisely on the piece where you want it to go. It's a super handy tool to have in your toolkit, so if you're interested, I have a video about doing it right there. Pretty close. Alright. To make the prongy parts, I'm going to cut about, I'd rather have too much than not enough, so I'm going to cut about that much. Maybe 4 centimeters or 1.5-ish. So let's cut 2 of those. Alright, really, let's find the center of both of these. One of you gets chopped in half. You can use your miter vise jig for this if you're a perfectionist. Apparently I'm not today. Some days I am. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a little X out of these. Alright, so I'm just going to flux that and solder those together into an X. This is going to be our bottom piece right here. So here's a couple of things you can do to make marks pretty precisely. Do this. Let me see if I can get this kind of centered on there. If you scratch through the purple mark, then it's easier to see a precisely placed line. That makes sense. I don't think I made it purple far enough on this one. So I was just marking the outside edge of where that ring was, and I want these to, I'm going to file these so that they bend upwards, so I can bend them upwards like this. And in order to do that, I want them to kind of inset a little bit into this ring here. So I'm going to make the mark where I'm going to have to file this in or use a Dremel or something to make a little notch on each side. So these kind of fit together nicely. I'm going to use that as a guide for where to cut some little notches in there. So I'm going to do that with the Dremel, and I'm going to go about halfway through, I think, and try and make them nice and square. So we'll see. Okay, so I cut some little kind of notches on the sides there. I think I'm going to do the notches for the second ring on this one, on the vertical thing, so that it's easy to pop in there and keep in there. Let's leave that one be for now. I'm going to go ahead and cut the bend on this one, and since I cut those inwards a little bit so that they'd be inset, I'm going to need to move the spot in from the edge there just a little bit in order to get that to tuck in there nice when I file this. Should be able to bend these a little bit sharper because of that. I'm going to bend these inwards a little bit like that. Actually, I can eyeball this like this. And I think it might be a good idea if we use the calipers to scratch this. I don't know. Okay, I'm kind of making an arbitrary choice about how far up I want this to be. It's really just a matter of taste on this, probably. But I don't want it too tall, and I don't want it too short, because if it's too short, I won't have much to attach all those vertical things to. I don't know if this will work or not. That's pretty close. Thing is now, I have to find a way to file a little bit of a notch on the inside where that line is. So it's hard to see, but I'm kind of putting a little notch at that height on this inside of this one. I'm going to do it on all 4 of these. But I'm probably not going to make you watch me do the same thing over and over again. Okay, I fiddled with it and I got it stuck in there. And I actually bent these inwards just a little bit to make sure it's tight on there. I tried to keep it as horizontal as possible. And we'll see if we can't cut a little bit more solder and solder the top ones. Then we can start building the bulk of the ring, I think. I feel like the best way to do this is to, once I have this assembled, is to use my soft surface, my magnesia block, and put this on top of it and start building a surrounding of those pieces of square wire that we're going to create that are kind of textured, and push them into the pad so they stick straight up, and it'll be easier to solder them to the sides of this to kind of create the body of the ring there. If you're new to this, don't get discouraged. It takes a little while to get a feel for where to put the heat when, but after you play with it, and as long as you analyze when things go south, figure out what happened, you gradually get the hang of it, and pretty soon you can make just about anything you want. The picture that I saw online of a ring like this, all of the square wire was kind of textured with horizontal lines that I hammered into it. And so I'm going to do something similar. I thought it looked really kind of cool with this one. And I'm just going to take some of this square wire and do the same thing. Now I'm going to have to texture all 4 sides. I bought this texturing hammer a little while back. It's not great, it's okay. But it's got this little head for it that has horizontal lines, and it makes for a good, if you just want a whole bunch of horizontal lines on something, it works pretty well. Alright, so I'm just gonna see, it just kind of gives it like horizontal lines, so I'm just gonna work my way all the way down the entire length on each side. Okay, I got some materials to work with here. I can always make more if I need to. So I took my magnesia block, which are really crumbly and they start to look like this after a while. I took it out in the driveway and I rubbed it on the driveway to make a flatter surface on the top here. You can do that with charcoal blocks too if you ever want to make your charcoal block look a little fresh and new, have a flatter surface. Just make sure you don't write any mean things in your neighbor's driveway with your charcoal block. I want these to, think about it, in order to keep them vertical, I'm going to push them down into the pad. But I want to keep, if you notice on my drawing here, they're all facing the same direction, so the squares are all going in the same direction, like this and this. So I don't want them diagonally going out. So I want to make sure when I put them in there that they're all 90-degree angles to each other. So I'm just going to cut out some pieces of this. See if we can do that and see how that works. Then we'll continue adding to it. I think it might be easier if I solder the four-way pieces together for each side, flat, and then add each side, and then we'll start filling in the gaps maybe. Kind of liking that the solder didn't run all the way up the whole length, so I'll do a few more like this. Okay, I'm going to do some slight adjustments and then I'll start adding more stuff. So let's do 2 sets of these 3. I cut a few more of these here. Oh, I filled in the corners too by soldering in a few more where the prongs are sitting, I should say. I think this interestingly, this entire ring is made of 16 gauge square wire. I'm going to put this right against the center of the side that I marked with purple, slightly lower than these other ones. The more mass you add to it, the longer it takes to get up to temperature, which is normal. So I think those sides are done. I'm going to start. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on that side. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yeah, 6 or 7 on that side. So if I do 4 and then 3 for the band, maybe. Let's solder those ones on. It's getting to be kind of an interesting looking piece. I think I need 3 more on each side, and then we'll do the band. And we may do the band at 3 as well, because I don't want it to get too narrow. I got those that set of 3 on the outsides where it's going to be the part where the band starts, and then I hammered out some more of this stuff, and I figured out about how long I wanted it to be for the right size. And then I'm going to solder those together, but I think I'm going to offset them just a little bit. Okay, so I'll make this into kind of a U shape. This is really how I'm going to solder it on, I think. Something like that. Trick is, I need to get this all hot without anything shifting or moving now. So, I'm not sure which way to go about that. I think maybe if I just position it so it's in like that, that's probably pretty good. But I want to make sure to get a good solder joint on either side of this band here. The other thing I'm going to do after I pickle this is I'm going to take the saw and I'm going to cut it so it's more circular, get rid of some of this stuff so that from the side it looks relatively round. And I'll have to saw out that X that's in the middle from where we made the prong setting and cut these down a little bit, and then we'll set the stone. When I flip it over, the backside has a tendency, not to flow as well. So yeah, I see some gaps there. So I think let's cram it back down in there again. Flux this side and then hit those spots a little bit. That is a whole mess of pieces of square wire. Probably going to let this pickle first, and then I'm going to do all that trimming up of stuff. And then we'll, I may do this off camera, but I'm going to, remember I said I'm going to make a kind of a taper to the inside of that circle that's in there and cut out those little that little X that's in there with the saw. So I'll probably do that after it's pickled. So a few things that I finished off camera. I rounded that out and smoothed it out, and I polished. And then I thinned these out just a tiny bit to make them a little bit narrower. And I got this seated in there pretty well, so I think I'm just going to start bending these over now, one at a time, just gently. Try not to tip it. Put some pressure on it to lay it down now. Try to get it tight up against that girdle facet. Snip them off a little bit more. Not quite to the final length yet. Cutting about midway down the girdle facets. Alright, so one more ring. I think that's pretty cool. I think that's a showpiece. I will round out those top prongs and get some better pictures at the end. And then I think we'll be done. Well, that was the Brutalist ring. I hope that you enjoyed it. I think it's a good learning experience whenever you try something you've never tried before, if it's just slightly above what you think you're able to do, because it pushes your skill levels to reach new heights, and I think that's a good thing. So this was a good, fun experiment for me. If you enjoyed it and if you liked the content, make sure to hit the like button before you leave. I'd love it if you leave a comment or a suggestion for a video. There's different ways to support the channel, so if you're interested in that, visit my video description down below. There's links to my Patreon. There's a Buy Me a Coffee link if you want to just give me a contribution to help buy supplies and things, or just as an appreciation for what I'm doing here. And there's a link to my website and also my merch store where you can get things like that notebook that I showed you. So thanks for watching. I really appreciate your support. Take care. Happy silversmithing.